Hey class, so in this video what we're going to learn about is the synthesis essay and particularly how to start working our way towards writing the project. We're going to do a brainstorm, we're going to think about how to create an outline in some sense, and then of course nail down what our thesis would be so we can go forward and do some more research and actually write the essay. Particularly what I want you to do first and foremost, I'm going to share with y'all the link itself to the research essay, right? We should review that, make sure that you do read this through. Particularly though, you want to make sure that you look at this final essay asks you or your team can consist of 3 people, to conduct research on an issue related to climate change and your future industry. You will analyze 2 different solutions to this scenario and ultimately create a plan of action essay for your industry. Okay. So within that, what you want to think about is what industry do you want to be in the future. So perhaps you're studying for that now. What's your major? Maybe it could also be something that you're just interested in. Maybe your major isn't as thrilling as you want it to be, but maybe you can do something else that is more fun and you want to research, right? Now remember that it has to relate to climate change. How's your industry exacerbating climate change, and what are the solutions that you can implement today or in the future to solve those problems? We can look more in depth into this by looking at the PowerPoint, which you can find also in the online course folder in BlackBoard. So how to write a synthesis essay. Today we're going to do the brainstorm and research section. Particularly, first thing you want to do, as noted, is reread the prompt, right? What industry do you want to work in? So again, what do you want to do in the future? What particular part of this industry am I interested in? This is one that gets people tripped up because some will say, well, I want to be in the cooking industry. Okay, well, that's pretty diverse. You want to narrow it down to particularly what you want to do, the supply chain sourcing of certain kinds of foods. Do you want to do the agricultural side of that industry? Do you want to just do the actual opening of restaurants, right? So we have to narrow it down, because in that way we can figure out exactly how we can create solutions for the way our industry creates problems and exacerbates climate change, right? How does my industry exacerbate climate change? Well, that's something you have to think about a little bit in depth, right? Consider how energy is used, consider what kind of greenhouse gases our industry emits, what materials do we use, do we mine for oil, coal, these kinds of issues. And then finally, how can my industry prepare for a future with climate change? Some of y'all might not have an industry that is affecting the environment right now, but maybe it's the inverse for you. You want to prepare your industry for how climate change will affect it, right? So what are the steps you can take as a professional to get ready for that kind of a future? So the sample here, brainstorm, let's say you wanted to get into the soccer industry. Okay, well, let's narrow it down. Particularly here, I talk about Major League Soccer in the United States, which is the premier professional league that we have. And so how does my industry exacerbate climate change? I thought, okay, the energy needed to power the stadiums, that's a big one. Transportation, how do the players and the teams get across the country to play each other? The food waste and the sports equipment that's used both in the stadiums and for different games. And then finally, how can my industry prepare for a future with climate change? I thought, okay, well, power, most likely we can use solar power. We can limit the waste that we create and then try alternative forms of transport. Maybe that'd be helpful. The second one here, you want to think about your audience and their concerns. So as listed in the prompt, your audience will be your industry, right? So you want to make sure that your solution that you're going to present is effective, logical, it's cost effective, you have the land for that, it's ethical, you have enough people to do it, you have consumer demand for it, people still want to buy your product, and it's logical above all else, right? So as it notes, I want you to consider who your audience is, write down their concerns. That'd be your brainstorm, right? So on a separate sheet of paper, you should fill that out and figure out what are the concerns. Here's a sample, again, thinking about Major League Soccer. You can think about the cost. What's it going to cost you? Is it going to be affordable? Would climate solutions actually help us save money? That'd be a great benefit. Infrastructure, do we need new stadiums, old stadiums? How much greenhouse gases comes from the stadiums that we have currently right now? Ethics, can we find a way to make players, local communities, and investors all happy and be moral with these kinds of decisions? People power, consider, can we use the employees we already have? Do we need to create new positions? Consumer demands, will fans even care about climate change? How can we attract new fans? Will it affect our winning, right? And then logical solutions, we need to switch to renewable power, use less plastic, recycle and compost more. So you want to think about solutions, climate solutions that are logical, right? Okay, So in order to do this, you want to get into research, right? We've written out a couple of our brainstorming ideas, and what we want to move into is the research, right? So by doing that, we can see what kind of issues and solutions exist in our industry, right? Because we need to know that before we jump into a research essay. So in order to move from there, what you should do is do a simple Google search. You could put your industry in climate change, greenhouse gases, sustainable practices, climate change solutions. You want to see what kinds of issues and solutions are right now so you can write your essay towards that. And then, of course, you want to focus on which issues or solutions you want to focus on, right? So I'll show you how I did it with mine. Particularly, what I did was I went into Google, and I'll show you how I did that, right? I'm sure y'all can do that with computers. So I put Major League Soccer sustainable practices right into Google, and first thing I got was MLS is the most responsible league in the world. That sounds like a great one in 2018. Cleaner goals from the actual organization, 2019, right? Remember that your sources should be no older than 5 years. MLS announces expansion sustainability. MLS to celebrate Earth Day annual. So all of these sound great, right? And initially, if I click on a few of these, I found a couple great tabs, right? Particularly, what I'd say to take a look at is the first result that I had there. Talks to you about the Sports Sustainability Journal. Okay, that seems legitimate because it's a journal, right? And it talks about it's recognized as the most responsible football league in the world because of its sustainability practices, right? So I could read through this and understand why it was given the most environmentally friendly league award, right? So here it talks about how their stadiums are sustainable, what kind of greener goals do those league have, right? What are they doing? Are they planting trees? Are they building houses? X, Y, and Z, right? So I think this is a great one that helps me get an idea of what's going on so far with my industry, right? And what kind of issues are going down as well. I would also check out the second result that I had there. So particularly, look at one more. This one, let's see, right, this one, okay. So this one's about food waste. So this is one of the ones that came up first as well from the Nature Conservancy, so you might remember that from earlier classes. Looks like Sporting Kansas City, which is one of the teams, they're getting together to worry about food waste, right? So a lot of these stadiums have a lot of food waste because fans don't finish all the things they eat or some food sold. So this creates a lot of carbon emissions and the methane emissions. So this is a big issue that sports teams create. So I could read into that and consider, okay, it looks like food waste and energy use and the way that stadiums function need to be thought about within climate change issues in my industry, right? Okay. Now, you finish all that, you start researching what kind of issues are going on, what kind of solutions are out there. You want to start moving towards what your thesis is going to be. So within that, we can go back to the PowerPoint and open that up. Okay, we can move forward a bit here. Right, we've done our research. We tried a few simple Google searches, right? Note which climate issues or solutions you want to focus on. Moving forward, remember that your sources, right? This is important because your sources should be no more than 5 years old. Please don't find some kind of solution or issue that's 20 years old, 10 years old. That doesn't make sense, right? You want to make sure it's obtained from credible websites, edu, org, or gov. Those are the three best ones I could say. Or you could be sourced from reliable news outlets or publishers, right? So if it's something to do in soccer industry, if it's the actual league's website, if it's an accredited journal, right? Those are all great sites. We don't want to look for blogs. We don't want to look for clickbait articles that just tell us the top 10 issues in soccer. That's not going to be helpful. We want to make sure that the people are from credible sources because in the end, your essay will be graded as well. 10 points comes from your sources. I will check those and how are they credible and how you use them in the essay. Make sure that they're detailed in research articles that explain the solution or an issue, right? We don't just want a blurb that says 5 sentences and that's it. We want to make sure that we have enough information to write about in our essay. And then you shouldn't have more than 3 outside sources in your essay, right? So keep those in mind. So the results, we found food waste. Well, let's see. That's the issue. If there's a lot of food waste, perhaps you could try composting. Just brainstorm what could be possible solutions. We're currently using non-renewable energy, so perhaps we could use solar power. That was my dog, so sorry about that. We could also think about the waste that we create during games, the plastic waste, the single-use plastics, so maybe move to biodegradable materials, right? So these are just brainstorming ideas. Once you figure out the issues that are in your field, you should start thinking about what can we do to possibly solve these issues, right? And that's up to you. You can figure those out. Then you want to create your thesis. So you have two options, particularly single issue solution. You'll see industry X exacerbates climate change by blank. The industry can solve this issue by blank. And then the other one just gives you two issues, two solutions, right? So it just spreads it apart for you to be more expansive in what you want to write about. Here's a sample. So the MLS exacerbates climate change by using non-renewable energy for their stadiums, which is what we found out in our research, right? The industry can solve this issue by switching to solar power. So there's one sustainable solution to it. Or number two, let's think about two issues and two solutions we could look for. So the MLS exacerbates climate change by using non-renewable energy for their stadiums and creating tons of waste. The industry can solve this issue by switching to solar power and going zero waste at stadiums. So what we will be doing is not simply just looking at how's it creating using non-renewable energy and tons of waste, but we need to think about how can we find information about solar power and going zero waste in stadiums. That's what we're going to really look for our research articles, because initially we're going to research what's going on in the essay, what are we thinking about, what are the current issues and solutions out there, but ultimately in the middle we're going to have to actually find articles that give us these solutions and talk about them, right? So that's a good starting point for your work right now. As I asked before, please make sure that you do the outline, right? Take the time to write that out. Figure out what issues and solutions are out there right now in your industry. Formulate your thesis, and then we can move on to the introduction, right? So I'll see you in the next video.